Well, letters from World War II, featuring Tripp Ransone and Tripp Ransone's story of his father's journey in World War II. I really kind of feel ridiculous because everybody knows Tripp. I mean, you all probably know more about Tripp than I know about Tripp. But I can tell you what I just did learn about Tripp, that he is a graduate from UVA, and one of his biggest claims to fame is he lived 2 years on Tangier and acted as a project manager and created the sewage treatment plant on Tangier. This is before he went to work at NASA as the assistant chief of the sounding rockets program. So that's pretty intense. So tonight's program is, like I say, is Tripp's letters and memorabilia that he collected from his father, that he wrote to his mother about his Lieutenant Dupuy. And we knew it wasn't Dupuy, so it was Dupuy.
Dupuy.
Dupuy, okay.
Dupuy is the Eastern Shore Peninsula.
Because, well, so I was getting ready to go on the radio the other day, and we were pronouncing it Dupuy, and I was like, that is not an Eastern Shore name. So I go to Charlie. I said, Charlie, did you know Tripp's dad? Yeah, Dupuy. So Dupuy Ransone, but we'll let you pronounce it that way anyway. And of course, he was the platoon leader for the 998th Treadway Bridge Company during World War II. So Tripp is going to talk to us tonight about his experiences going from Normandy through Normandy and Germany, building bridges, and the letters that he wrote his mom and other people on his journey, and some of them are kind of heartbreaking, you know. I read through your program, so. Anyway, without further ado, let's introduce Tripp Ransone.
Thank you all for coming. Mostly what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to talk a little bit here at the front, but mostly what I'm going to do is just read the slides because it's really Dad's presentation from his letters home. I didn't know a whole lot of this myself because, like most of those guys, Dad never really talked about the war too much, at least with me. And so years after he died, I found these letters, and my grandmother had saved the letters that he wrote home the whole time he was in the Army. And there's literally hundreds of them because most of them are on this tissue thread thickness paper that they were sent home by airmail. And so Dad was drafted in 1940, long before Pearl Harbor, back when our country was divided between, much as now, when it was divided between stay out of foreign interventions or get involved. And he was definitely on the side of stay out. You can read his letters. He was not very happy about being in the Army. But after Pearl Harbor, everything seemed to change, and everybody in the country stepped up and did their part. And some of those men, I would like to mention, I get a little emotional for this, so you all have to excuse that. But y'all might know Mac Bull. Mac Bull was at D-Day, is my understanding. He went ashore at Normandy on D-Day. Melvin Lewis was a tank commander in Germany. He was awarded the Silver Star as a tank commander. If you knew Melvin, I can sort of picture him as being a tank commander.
Melvin Lewis?
That's what I remember. Sonny's father.
Okay, yeah.
I believe I remember reading. I believe I remember reading that in his obituary.
Okay.
It says, now I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
I believe that to be true. Sonny would certainly know. But Walter Milner, Polly's uncle, was a B-24 bomber pilot over Germany in the early part of the war when those guys had about a 20-some, 30-some% survival rate early on. Paul Milner, her other uncle, went ashore at Normandy. I got that right, don't I? Paul Lewis. Colin Lofkin, y'all might remember Colin. He was a Marine in the Pacific. In some very serious battles in the Pacific. And so anyway, it was just a time when everybody stepped up. Pretty much everybody did something, you know. And Dad he bounced around the country for a while at different bases. And got training, and he decided to become an officer. And he didn't have any college training. He went to an ANCOC. And so a friend of his that he made in the Army, a guy named Walter Whitehead, I think he was from Alabama, he would take Dad to the latrine where the lights were on at night after lights out and help him study. And so Dad got through OCS school and became an officer And he was a lieutenant in this 998 Treadway Bridge Company, and there was 3 platoons in the bridge company. And he had one fellow named D'Anthony had another one, and the company commander commanded the company, and the third one, Hancock, he was a fellow from Texas. So it was about 130, 40 people all together, and they would sometimes work as a unit, and they would sometimes split up and be sent to different places depending on the magnitude of what it was they needed to do. So they were in Patton's Third Army and went ashore at Normandy shortly after D-Day, a couple of weeks after D-Day. They didn't need bridges at Normandy. So skipping back just a little bit, Dad grew up in Phoebus until he was about 13, and his father was an insurance salesman, and he got promoted to this district here on the Eastern Shore. So the family moved over here, the Ransone family moved over here in the 20s, and so that's how Dad ended up on the shore. And then, like I say, later on, he was 26, I guess, when he got drafted. So so he grew up during the Depression, and then the war happened. So anyway, let me get my little clicker here before I get ahead of myself. This is a pontoon bridge. You can see, basically, it's a series of floating pontoons, and you put these treads over top of them, and then you drive across. And so that's the whole thing. They put anchors out upstream to keep the thing from breaking, and it's tied at the shoreline on either end.
Very good. You're there.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so this is my dad, and I'll talk about this a little later, but I want you to know that I think I can see a ring on his finger there. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'll just point that out in this slide. So Dad went to England in, I think it was in February, and he lived with an English family until D-Day. And some critical dates here that I wrote down just to make sure that I remember them. Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 41. Dad went in January of 1940, so he was in for quite a while before Pearl Harbor happened. D-Day was June 6, 1944. The war ended in Europe on May 8th in 45. And the Battle of the Bulge was over Christmas in 1944. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is an English pound note that everybody in Dad's platoon signed prior to them going across at Normandy, and here's that pound note with the signatures on it. And in the lower left-hand corner is the name of a fellow named James Cornelius. I believe it's in the left-hand corner. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later too. So this is during the crossing. These are just pictures from going across the English Channel. I really don't know how Dad got pictures, but there are a lot of pictures in his personal effects, and they were scattered about in drawers around the house. And so when I started doing this project, I went all over the house and put everything together collectively in some boxes. And then I read these letters. When I found the letters, I didn't find the letters till after he died. He was dead years before I found these letters and put all this stuff together. So that's how this whole thing came to pass. I did it first at work as a sort of for my little group up at work. I've done it a time or two since then. This is where Dad went. He was part of Patton's Third Army. He was attached to Patton's Third Army. Sometimes they would go off and they were attached to the Fifth Army, but mostly Patton's Third. And they also fought with the French Foreign Army, or the French Free Army, I think it was called. They would get assigned to the French forces from time to time. So they were really on the move. I don't think they were in one place more than a few days at most. They get the bridge built and then they went somewhere else to build another bridge. But I have the morning report, fortunately. That helped me tremendously. The morning report is a daily report that Hancock did, the CO, for what they had done the day before. And it really consists of just a few lines. But the most important information it tells me where they were on any given day. So I was able to coordinate that, and these numbers correspond to just sequentially where they landed and where they went. So they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know where, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Paris is up here somewhere, 14, 15. And this is a region called the Colmar region. The Rhine River is in here. And they were trying to cross the Rhine River down here for quite a while, and they were unsuccessful in crossing down there. And then I'm jumping ahead now, but just as an overview. And then the Battle of the Bulge, the Argonne happened, and Patton's Third Army, if you watch the movie, they go up to Bastogne and kind of rescue that situation. So he went up here into Belgium. Bastogne is right here. And then they came back down here again and did a whole bunch of stuff down here. And then they shot up here to Remagen, where they built the first bridge across the Rhine River into Heartland, Germany. And then they came down the Rhine, building bridges all along the way down the Rhine so that Allied troops could cross. So that's basically what they did, was the bridge building. So these are pillboxes, or blockhouses rather, at Normandy, the pictures that he took. Here's a letter home, July 24th, 44. I'm sitting in an apple orchard in my Jeep. The sun is very bright and warm, and haven't received any mail in over 3 weeks, but we are still hoping it will be up with us tomorrow. Things are going along all okay. No need for either of you to worry about me. I can and will take good care of myself and my boys. We all know our job better than anyone else on earth, and we will do it to perfection. Have seen quite a few natives, but don't know what they are talking about, so I guess I will be content to listen to my interpreter. Money is absolutely no good, and cigarettes, coffee, soap will buy you just about anything they have. There are many things I would like to write about, but just can't, so keep up with the radio, and you'll know what's happening. Most of the early letters don't really have a lot of information. He wrote his mother every couple of 3 days just to let her know that he was okay. But of course they couldn't talk a whole lot about exactly what was going on. But after he was there with the Army of Occupation, he wrote some more letters, and you'll see some excerpts from those that go into more detail.
So he was not married when he went into the service?
Not when he went in, but they got married. They got married in, I believe, in Arkansas. He proposed to my mother in a letter, which is another letter. That's the only letter she seems to have saved. My grandmother saved every letter. So I have that letter also. And my grandmother Ransone and my grandmother Kalana. My mother was a Kalana, so she's hardcore Eastern Shore. They've been here forever. And the three of them went to Arkansas where they were married. So, and then I guess grandmother Kalana and Ransone came back to the shore, and she stayed down there until he went overseas. So I was going to read you what happened here at Normandy. Is they got bottled up there. The next slide, I'll go to the next slide, then I'll talk about that. I'll have to talk about that now. They got bottled up at Normandy, so the Germans had them cut off with the hedgerows. You probably heard about the hedgerows, and they had all this equipment and people like on the beach, and they did establish a beachhead, but they weren't breaking out. So after a one-day postponement, Operation Cobra got underway on 9/38 on 25 July, when around 600 Allied fighter bombers attacked strong points and enemy artillery along a 300-yard wide strip of ground located in the St. Lo area. And for the next hour, 1,800 heavy bombers of the U.S. 8th Air Force saturated a 6,000-yard long by 2,000-yard wide area on the St. Lo Paris something French road, and succeeded by a third and final wave of medium bombers of approximately 3,000 U.S. aircraft, carpet bombed a narrow section through there. with the Panzer Lehr division taking the brunt of the attack. So they literally flew thousands of airplanes and dropped thousands of bombs to clear an alleyway for these guys to get off the beach and push into France. And so that was a big deal. This is in the area where that happened. This was the first bridge they built. As the Germans retreated, they blew up everything. They blew up all the crossings across the rivers because they were trying to keep the Allies from pushing forward. So that was the purpose of the Treadway Bridge. August 16, 44, we were quite busy, and imagine we remained so for quite some time. We had been through several towns that are literally completely demolished, while other places carry few scars of battle. It is a wonderful experience to be one of the first to enter a liberated town and have the people bedeck your Jeep with flowers, etc. They seem so very, very happy, and they try to prove it. Wine and cider all free for the first day, and then the prices skyrocket. You see dog fights every now and then, but old Jerry doesn't seem to have too many planes right now. This is a Brockway truck. This is a special piece of equipment that they had. This was their principal piece of equipment, I think. And it's equipped with a crane on the back to handle these pontoons and the treadway systems, to assemble them and put them in place. They also had boats because they had to pull them out, and the instruction manual there for how to do this is there on the table. I have not looked at it, but a friend of mine here knows Phil Eberspeaker. Phil was very interested in the procedural manual how to assemble the bridge. So this says, it seems funny to go to bed with a loaded gun in your hand or go to church wearing full battle regalia. We had a service last night out on the edge of a hedgerow. It was a very nice service. We sang Rock of Ages and several other songs, and I think it helps quite a lot. It did seem funny, though, to see everyone, including the chaplain, turn and look every time a plane or planes would fly over. They just wanted to make sure they were one of ours, because they aren't always ours. Okay, now this is one, when you see these July 3rd retrospect, these are from letters that he wrote when he was there with the Army of Occupation after the war. But I have positioned his commentary in the presentation for where it occurred as they were moving forward. So this is what this is more like what he would have written had he been able to transmit this information, at that point in time. But he got it out after everything was over. So this is, we were outposting the town of Cézanne, France, when attacked by, and that's somewhere south of Paris, I think is where that is. When we were attacked by SS troops, they were coming up a small hill, and we had machine guns set up on the forward edge. Boy, that was a slaughter. They never knew what really happened. They came up, and the forward challenged them, and they made their fatal mistake when they fired a light Tommy gun on him. It was then that the fire really started. We piled them up. It ended. We had about 25 very scared prisoners. They said there was about 1,000 of them, and we had 136 men and 4 officers. We were the only Americans within approximately 80 miles, and we were out of gas. If you watch Patton's movie, Patton was moving ahead so fast, he was overtaking so much territory that his logistics were having a hard time keeping up with him. It was a challenge. And you can see these are the treads. These are the treads in the back of the truck. And they had some of these trucks had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on the front of them. They had 17 trucks that had 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the front. So they would probably do an encampment with the machine guns on the trucks on the offensive side. I would guess is how that went. So the French peasants don't appear to have very much, but I am sure part of that is due to having had the Germans here for quite a long time. They say the Germans took anything and everything they wanted, including the horses. A couple of my boys captured 3 German horses and traded them for eggs. My bulldozer operator is pretty good with a slingshot and came back with a big pheasant. It looks like we will eat good tonight if it just stops raining long enough to cook them. So this is a Messerschmitt that they came across a few of these Messerschmitts. This is a picture that is in Dad's hands that he took, and this is one that I found on Wikipedia of the same plane. That was the first jet aircraft. The Nazis were introducing them at the end of the war. July 3rd, retrospect. So one morning they called me at 4 a.m. and told me to go make a bridge reconnaissance at a town called Frambois. When I got there, the infantry was pinned down by machine gun fire. I was there for 3 days and still couldn't get down to the river. The morning of the fourth day was foggy, so I went out and found out what they wanted to know. I was several hundred yards out in front of the infantry and only a little over 100 feet from 7 German machine guns. That's when I won the Silver Star. That night, the tanks forded downstream and we built upstream. There was plenty of mortar, tank, and small arms fire on us that night. We finished up just before day. Then there was Treadway Mines, excuse my pronunciation, where I lost 12 men and nothing flat, and when I got hit in the butt, that was rough. So Dad, as a platoon leader, it was his responsibility to go out. They were always on the front lines, obviously, because they were building the bridges to get across the rivers. But part of his job was to go out on reconnaissance and scout for where to build the bridge. And I was talking to a fellow, Polly and I just got back from a recent trip to France, and there was a gentleman in our group whose father was a pilot, and he'd done a lot of research, and he said that likely he went out, I know he didn't go by himself, likely he went out with a squad of Army Rangers that accompanied him, and he was a technical guy for, looking for where to build the bridge and that type of thing. So this is his commendation for the Silver Star for gallantry in action against the enemy in France. Lieutenant Ransone repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire when he went in advance of leading assault elements to locate bridge sites for river crossings. He worked tirelessly without regard for his own safety, directing the construction of the emergency bridges under constant enemy fire, and his outstanding service to fidelity and duty reflect the highest credit on himself and the armed forces of the United States. That previous one, I'm not sure if I read it or not, or if it was even in there, but I remember him saying it was extremely foggy and he was fording the river, and he didn't really know exactly where he was and where the German machine guns were, and they obviously didn't know he was there, but the whole thing was because of the fog is why they didn't see him when he was waiting around out there in the river looking for the solid bottom and shallow spots. These commendations were in the morning report. They were part of the morning report. So this is one for someone who is probably one of the people that accompanied him on these expeditions, looking for the bridge crossing. I suspect I included it just because it was an interesting commendation. It says, for heroic achievement in connection with military operations against the enemy near on December 16, Sergeant Ninzak successfully repulsed an initial onslaught of large enemy forces with machine guns set up in a barn. Despite heavy mortar and machine gun fire directed at his position, he continued to deliver deadly fire until the barn was aflame. Then, deliberately exposing himself to enemy fire, he unfastened the tripod and, firing his gun from the hip, established a position nearby. Sergeant Ninzak's courage and heroic devotion to duty exemplify the highest traditions of the armed forces. This is a FW-190D. I'm not an airplane guy. I think that's a Fokker. We have any airplane people here? I think it's another dive bomber that the Germans have. And once again, this is Dad. I can recognize his posture up there on the back of this plane. And this is the same plane restored that I found on the internet. So, letter. I guess you'd be a little surprised to receive this letter on the back of one of the letters that you wrote, but we don't have any paper, so we just have to use this if I want to write. Hope you won't mind, but I know how you worry when you don't hear from me. This is September 18th, says, I too have a lovely pair of German pistols and a German machine gun. The Germans that had them won't be needing them anymore. So this is a Luger, and this is a P-38, and this is a Strumger 44 assault rifle. This was the first assault rifle ever made. The Germans developed the first assault rifle. And that particular gun is a museum piece. The last one I saw, and I don't look regularly, but the last one I saw for sale was like $30,000 or $40,000. You know, I follow guns and that kind of stuff. So I looked today just out of curiosity. I couldn't find one anywhere on the whole internet. So it's a pretty rare gun now. I'll jump ahead and tell you what happened to the guns. Dad liked guns. He was a good pistol shot, and he collected them as he went across France and Germany. And he actually carried. He preferred the Luger pistol. He carried a Luger in a shoulder holster as opposed to a 45 because he liked the Luger pistol better. So as they were in France getting ready to come home, he said they were in a cafe, and an Air Force guy came up, an Air Force officer came up and wanted his Luger and offered to buy it from him, and he said, no, it's not for sale. And I don't remember the numbers, but the Air Force guy went back to his buddies and collected up all the money he could get, and he brought it back and he put it down on the table in front of Dad. Apparently it was a fairly significant amount of money. The Air Force guy said, I gotta have a Luger, you know, to go home. And Dad said it was enough money to get his attention, so he said, you wait right there. And he said he took the Luger off and he set it on the table, and he went out to the Jeep and he got 1,000 rounds of 9mm ammo out of the back of his Jeep and brought that in. Put it on the table with the Luger. So that's what happened to the Luger. The rest of the guns, except for a couple that I do have, he had a sea bag full of guns apparently that he was going to bring home, and they had been in France, and this was like in the fall of 1945, and the war in Europe ended in the spring. The war in Europe ended, May 8th, 1945 is what my notes here say. So he'd been there quite a while. He was ready to come home. He was ready to come home from the day he got there, I think. But so he said you were only allowed to bring home like 1 or 2 guns, and the sentries, the MPs, were checking people randomly. And if you got caught with more than you were supposed to have, he said there were no consequences. You just didn't get on that boat, and you got sent back. They confiscated the guns, and you got sent back to wait for another boat. And he said he wanted to come home. And he was on the gangplank, and he was seeing what was happening, so he took his sea bag full of guns and he dumped them all overboard off the gangplank. And I asked him, "Did you get checked?" He said, "No, I didn't get checked." But that's what happened to most of the guns. This is Dad in the middle here behind these 2 guys. This is a Stuka bomber. It says the war may be over for the newspapers, but it isn't. This is in September, but it isn't for those of us who are over here, and I know that for a fact. I know how you like to hear from me, but if you don't, it's just because I haven't had the time. All my clothes are dirty, and I haven't been cleaned for quite a while now. We will be getting some new ones before long, I hope, because these are getting tattered and torn as well as dirty. This is October 24th. October 4th. It says, this morning I went to town and had a hot bath in the tub. Oh boy, was it nice. The first one I've had in over 2 months.
Whoa.
I really did leave a ring around the tub. October 22nd, it said, just finished lunch, and guess what I had? Turkey and stuffing plus gravy. One of the boys located a 10 or 12 pound turkey, and we fixed him up. 6 of us ate him, and believe me, it was really good. It's surprising what you can do with a blowtorch in a hand. So they were really, they were moving daily, I think, and sleeping on the ground, and they would try to get into places when they could get into places. And there's a couple of examples coming up here. So this is most of his pictures. Thank goodness he wrote on the back what they were. He wrote some note on the back, so that helped me put a lot of this together. And when you see something on the picture in quotations like that, that's what he wrote on the back. So the typical example of the Kraut work. So they, like I said before, they would just crash every bridge as they retreated. The Germans would. Letter to Mom. This is from a woman in England. It says, Dear May, please let me introduce myself. I am Ann Moores, and I live opposite to where your husband was billeted while he was in England. He was here for 5 months, in which time he made many friends. Now he tells me in his last letter, October 5, that he is in France. My husband is in Italy, and I have two small sons, Brian age 4 and Dennis age 3. They have almost forgotten their daddy, as we have seen him only 13 days in 2 years. So you see, they were so small when he went away. I'll be very pleased when this war is over and we can all have our boys home again. That will be a grand day for all of us. I hope your health is all right and everything is okay, so I will close for now. So cheers and keep smiling. P.S. Please send me a picture of you and your husband together, and I will certainly so treasure it. That was nice of her to write. This is a Panzer tank, and once again, this is my dad here on the Panzer tank, and took me a while to find out what this is. This is a Panzer Panther Offs A, and if you look carefully, you can see this one on the museum in Ottawa. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same tank, so I'm pretty sure that's what that piece of equipment is. This is once again a retrospective letter. We were going down the road one night when they bombed and strafed our column of trucks. A bomb hit behind one truck driven by Sergeant Martin, and the concussion was so great that the engine stopped. It was a big bomb, and all the trucks behind him had to take a detour. They shot out windows, doors, and everything. They also bombed one night in a field right next to us and knocked out 7 240-millimeter guns. We piled up shrapnel all around us. So his pictures, as you've all seen pictures of Germany, he has lots of pictures that show the destruction of the Allied bombing of Germany. They just leveled the place. This is pillboxes on the Siegfried line, I believe. And the Siegfried line, maybe I can remember this note. The Siegfried line was the line between France and Germany, and it was a German defensive line, 2,400 miles long, if my memory serves. No, it had 2,400 pillboxes on it. And so that was part of the defensive, along with tank traps and the cross things that tanks can't drive across and all of that. So the Siegfried line was a big deal apparently. So you can see somebody bazookaed this one or did something to like the back side of it. This is in Luxembourg. The Battle of the Bulge was around Christmas time. You all have seen movies about the Battle of the Bulge and the movie Patton and whatnot. It was cold and snowing, and the Nazis on a last push went through the Ardennes and into Belgium, and they encircled Bastogne. And Patton, in the movie Patton, next time you happen to see it, pay close attention. Patton says he can rescue those men. He can push up there and he can solve that problem. And I didn't put this together really until I saw the movie, and then it made sense to me. But anyway, Dad was in that push up through Luxembourg and into Belgium doing Patton's push up there for Bastogne. And November 29th, it says, "We have been fortunate in locating places to sleep that offer some sort of shelter. We now have folding canvas cots," which implies maybe before that they didn't. They just were sleeping on the ground. So when we can get into a barn or something, it really makes things nice for sleeping. We have had ice and snow, but the greatest part of it has been rain and mud. And December 10th, which is when this Ardennes thing was going on, I think, seems like I had never much time to write a nice long letter, but you understand. I haven't been to sleep for over 60 odd hours, so I'm pretty well whipped. That's when they were pushing north to get up there. So they were moving without sleeping. This is Christmas Eve, 1944. This is my mom here, and this is Billy James's father. Billy, who some of you know, I'm sure. Billy James's father was he commanded an African American shore battery unit in Maine. So he was an officer in charge of an African American shore battery unit in Maine, and Mom went up to stay with Liv and Bill for Christmas and New Year's Eve in 1944.
Who's the woman on the left in that picture?
Don't know.
Don't know?
Don't know. But this is Liv. This is Liv James right here. If you actually see the picture, you can tell that that's Liv. So, and the other ones, I don't know who they are.
How did he, when he was in Luxembourg following Patton, was he did they march? Did they, how
They
did
had
they?
trucks.
Trucks.
They were in these, they had their equipment trucks.
Oh,
So no, they weren't walking, they were riding. They were construction engineers, basically. So this is a, let me see if I have this. No, I don't. I'm sorry. This is a letter that, this is a note that he wrote my mother, and I'm not sure if I can read it or not. It says, I have the notes here on the computer, but I have to keep signing in.
next year, well, still together. Merry Christmas.
So this says, my darling, next year we will be together. So knowing that should help for you to have a Merry Christmas. I know it does me. So that's what that says.
Nice.
And the next one is a telegram that my mother sent him, and that one says, "You are more than ever in my thoughts at this time. All my love, all as well as home." So those two pieces are here on the table in some of the stuff. I still have them. This is, if you recall, once again from the Patton movie, the Germans did some significant damage in the Battle of the Bulge, and a lot of that was due to the fact that the Air Corps couldn't get up in the air. The weather was terrible, and so the Air Force couldn't get airborne. And when tank on the ground, the Germans were a formidable force. Their Air Force was pretty much shot, I think, by that time, and our Air Force gave us a huge advantage, but of course it wasn't useful in the bad weather. So the Americans were struggling. Patton had his priest or his chaplain, I guess is the right word, write a prayer to clear the weather so they could make progress. And that was printed on a little piece of paper, and one was given to every man in the unit. And here's the one that Dad got. So and I think I have on the next page the words for that. Yes, it says, "To each officer and soldier in the 3rd United States Army, I wish a Merry Christmas. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We march in our might to complete victory. May God's blessing rest upon each of you this Christmas Day, George Patton." And then the prayer is, "Almighty and most merciful Father, we humbly beseech thee, thy great goodness, to restrain these immoderate rains in which we have had to contend. Grant us fair weather for battle. Graciously hearken to us as soldiers who call thee, that, armed with thy power, we may advance from victory to victory and crush the oppression and wickedness of our enemies and establish thy justice among men and nations. Amen." And the sky's cleared, and then they push the Germans back. So this is in St. Marie, Belgium, at the Battle of the Bulge. This is a picture from that time. Dad writes, "The Germans will keep fighting until either the Russians or us completely wipe out the country. The Russians are really on the go now, and we are hoping that we'll be able to meet them right in the middle. We are all tired of this war, and especially me. One thing for sure is it can't last forever, I hope." Dad got frostbite during this time period, and I know for the rest of his life he would have trouble with his thumbs when the weather got cold as a result of that. It says, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way, I guess. This is another retrospect. Okay, this is a touching story here. It said, "My buddy was killed down in Colmar. He was a grand fellow and no fooling. I don't even have a picture of him, but I do have a horseshoe ring that he gave me." You remember the ring on the finger that I mentioned earlier? For good luck. He had one like it. I hope someday to be able to see his folks. He was blown apart. We looked for his head for an hour, but never did find it. He had several lines piled on top of each other. He was a crane operator. So this is the fellow, James Cornelius, and I did some research and I found his grave online. He's buried in Loire, and I contacted a distant cousin. He didn't have any children, and of course his wife has long since passed away. But this distant cousin was into genealogy, so he knew where the grave was, but he had no. He was living in another state. This guy was from Arkansas and Louisiana. Cornelius was. So this is a picture of the crane. 2 men lost in this, and there was a couple of other people wounded. But the part of the story that matters is before Dad died, not too long before he died, he was home, and we went. He said, "Let's go to the bank and let's get the safety deposit box." He said, "Everything that's in there is yours." And I'm tired of paying, the monthly, yearly fee for the safety deposit box. If you want to keep it in there, you can pay it, or you can take it home, or whatever you want. So we brought it home, and we went down to the basement, and we went through it item by item, and there was 50 things in there, maybe, little things, like they said, this is your grandmother's wedding ring, and this is your so-and-so's this, and I had a yellow piece of paper, and I was writing down what it was, and I had little tags with strings on them, like you sell things with. So every piece, I tied one of the little strings on it, put a number like number 2, and I'd write number 2 on the yellow paper what it was, because there's no way I was going to remember all that. I remember a few of them. But so I still have all that. But we got to this horseshoe. There was this horseshoe ring in there, and he got to this, and excuse me, and he said, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said, "I know it's important, but I just can't say right now," or "I just can't," I think that's what he said, something to that effect. He said, "I know it's important, but I just can't say right now." And so I didn't think anything about it at the time. I hadn't found these letters, hadn't read them, nothing, and so just put it aside, and we went on to the next item. But I, this has to be the horseshoe ring from James Cornelius that he was given. So, and I tried to, like I said, to contact family members, but I just don't think there are anywhere where he didn't have any children, not anything, remotely close anyway. So that kind of blew me away when I figured that out, years after he was gone. So January 29, had dinner with people whose house I'm staying. Now they're back in France again, I believe. They've gone up to Bastogne, and then they came back south into that Colmar region. That Colmar region, there was a lot of fighting in that Colmar region because they were trying to cross the Rhine down there, the border between Germany and France. And that's where Audie Murphy was. You all probably heard of Audie Murphy. He won more medals than anybody. And so that's where Audie Murphy did a lot of his fighting. It says, the people I'm staying, we had homemade noodles and rabbit with French wine sauce. These people are really good cooks and no fooling. If they just had things to work with, I know it would really be excellent. They don't have any spice, sugar, lard, etc., but they put out an excellent meal. They also speak English and are very nice people. Alsace, France. So who knew the French people knew how to cook, right? February, it says, "Yes, Mom, we try to take care of ourselves just as much as we can. I'm quite sure most of us are better boys than we were before. When we get scared, we pray, but it really does help. And then when you aren't scared, you are thankful. So all in all, I guess we do more thinking while we were over here." This is the Vosges Mountains, French-German border. Once again, cold, snowy. Looks terribly unpleasant to be sleeping on the ground. It's February. Well, I guess you know by now we are in Germany, and it really does us good to know that they are getting a dose of their own medicine. They are still fighting, though, so maybe we'll have to shake hands with the Russians before they decide to call it quits. Have been having some rather nice weather up until today. Naturally, we have that. Naturally, we like that because it gives our flyboys a chance to get off the ground. They are and have been doing a swell job. This is Aachen, Germany. I don't think that's how you pronounce it, but that's the best I can do. Anyway, on the back it says Aachen, Germany, and what's left of it. So wasn't a whole lot left. This is on the back of this one says "Cleaning up for good shooting at Remagen." The Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, Germany. This was the most famous river crossing they did. the last big natural barrier to defeating the Germans was the Rhine River. And they had blown up essentially all the bridges across the Rhine River, except for this one at Remagen. The Germans were retreating across this bridge at Remagen. And the Allies found out it was there, and so they made a huge push to try to get across there. I'm not quite sure how my slides go.
Whoa.
So what happened was the Allies got there, and there's actually a movie that's I think is more or less historically accurate. The Allies got there, and the bridge was intact, and the Germans tried to blow it up at the last moment, but either due to some defective material or some small arms fire had severed cables and whatnot, but the main charge didn't blow. They blew a big hole in the deck of the bridge, but the bridge stayed up intact. So the Allies were able to get a number of people and some equipment across the bridge and establish a bridgehead on the other side before the whole thing collapsed. Meanwhile, Dad's outfit and another outfit were building these two pontoon bridges down here, just downstream from the bridge. And Dad's outfit I mean, they didn't do it alone. You know, there were other companies and platoons involved. But his outfit built the first successful crossing across the Rhine River in Germany. So.
How long does it take to build a bridge like that?
I think it was, I think it was 90 hours. I'll show you a slide in a minute. It says, and it was quite a battle. I think it went on about 10 days. The whole thing was about 10 days before things settled down. It says, the crews of the bridge were repeatedly struck by artillery, suffering several direct hits that destroyed equipment and killed and wounded troops, and slowing work on the bridge. During one barrage, 17 engineers were killed or wounded, and 19 pontoons floats were destroyed. On March 10th, a direct hit from an artillery shell killed the battalion executive officer of the 276th Engineer Combat Battalion and injured 19 others. One engineer commented, while we were on the bridge, we were just fugitives from the law of averages. On the same day, the Luftwaffe attacked the bridge for 6.5 hours. American anti-aircraft gunners claim credit for about 28 of the 47 aircraft. When the engineers finished their heavy-duty 1,032-foot long bridge 32 hours later at 5:10 p.m. on Saturday, March 11th, it was the first Allied bridge across the Rhine. So 32 hours. There's your answer for that. So 357 German aircraft assaulted their crossing. 109 were shot down, and they had this monster 60 centimeter mortar, 2.54 centimeters to the inch, whatever that works out to. It's pretty big slug. And then they shot 11 V2s also at Adam while they were there. So this is a picture of the construction of the bridge. They would start at the shoreline, and they had a crane that would roll out, and they had small boats to pull up, and all under fire. You know, you got there doing all of this under fire. So this is a picture of Dad and Gene Hancock, I believe, his CO. This is 90 hours without 1 wink of sleep, and they're standing on the completed bridge there. This is the boys in the outfit ate and lived on our 1750 caliber machine guns for 3 days and nights, and really kept those crowds from doing their job. And this other picture says, just tired and no fooling.
Were they were given drugs to stay awake?
Not that I know of.
The Germans were.
The Germans were.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
That's
I
what
haven't heard that about the Americans, but I don't know. You know, I don't know. So.
I think that's how they create crystal meth.
Right.
You know, I have heard that on the German side.
Yeah.
So it says enemy shell sank 14 pontoons. That's more or less consistent with what Wikipedia had there earlier. And it says this one is the first bridge across the Rhine River, the 998th Treadway Bridge Company. So this is one of his pictures of the Ludendorff Bridge. You saw the earlier one before it collapsed, and this is a picture of after it collapsed. And this is pictures after things settled down a little bit. Says, if you're wondering why I haven't written for a few days, just look at the papers and you will know why. We have been pretty busy, and you know that. We really have made military history, and that was quite a big job, but we are just as proud as we can be and feel quite sure we will never be forgotten. We found 12,000 bottles of Pon per nod, and we are keeping it until we get a little rest, and then the boys are going to have a celebration. It's a lot, 12,000 bottles. They have been, are still the best in the Army, and have been on the go for a long, long time. You will be reading about us in all the papers, so please save the clippings. And so here's a picture of some of his men standing in front of the sign. This is, and once again, I have it on my computer here. There's a couple of interesting stats. Let me log in one more time. Truckload of Christ.
Christmas.
Oh no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I had it on a piece of paper. Anyway, there were thousands. I think there was something like 240,000 German casualties. It was a tremendous number. The Germans suffered horrendous losses because they were all concentrating in that area trying to get across. And I think the Americans got behind them, and it was a big defeat for the Germans. I'm sending you a box of German insignia, bars, buttons, etc. It's there on the table if you want to look at it when I threw up here. And also a few pictures of Remagen that show the now famous bridge. I hope you get them. We built the first bridge across the Rhine and been credited with the longest tactical bridge ever built. We're hoping that we will get a presidential citation for the unit. We have received a French decoration for our work down in the Vosges Mountains and the Colmar Plains. It's called the Arms of Colmar. We don't know what it looks like, but imagine we will get them in due time. I have not been able to find that, nor do I know what it looks like, but I think they were at least awarded it. This morning I washed out 2 shirts and a combat jacket. It is cloudy and rainy today, so I have my stuff hung up in a house. Yeah, we moved into a house last night. Funny how persuasive a Tommy gun can be. These Germans have nice homes, all brick and stone with tile or slate roofs. The land is very black and rich and will grow most anything. The people will really hang out the white flags of surrender. They carry white rags in their hands whenever they go out, but they are still Germans and we never trust them an inch. I sleep and eat and even carry my pistol with me to the toilet. We have nothing to say to them, although a few do try to be friendly. As we advance, we liberate hundreds of their slave laborers, who are mostly French, Poles, and Russians. They are very happy and wave and salute every soldier they see. Most of them are walking, although many have acquired bicycles. One Pole had a new German motorcycle, and he was really turning on. All he had was what was on his back, and he was headed to the rear at about 60. It was really funny to watch. I had a chance to go to Paris this morning for 3 days, but decided against it as I would have to ride 3 days in the back of a truck, so I will just take it easy around here for a couple of days, I hope. This is more destroyed German bridges. Says, and then once again, they're on the move. They're across the Rhine at Remagen, and they're headed south down the Rhine River, building crossings up and down the Rhine River, and the other rivers in that network. Says we're now staying in a hotel. Yep, it's located 2,800 feet up on top of a mountain. It says the view is lovely and no fooling. The hotel is in good shape, windows and all. We arrived to find the owner still hanging around, so we ran him off and took over. Every man has a nice bed with 2 clean sheets and a pillowcase. Our cooks have the kitchen, and I have the master bedroom with a balcony. Yeah, she is a classy joint. We hooked up our generator to the main line, so we have lights and radio giving out good news, and it still sounds good. So that's on April 9th. On the 11th, he writes, we aren't staying in our hotel anymore. We're in our tents and in the field, but don't mind just as long as the weather is nice. We have been moving so fast that we don't have much time for writing. This is Says, yesterday I acquired a nice Zeiss camera and some film, so we'll be taking a few pictures. I've been offered $50 for it, but won't sell it, as I'm told it takes lovely pictures. Yesterday we heard the news about Roosevelt being dead. Guess we heard it just about the same time you folks over there did. So here's the camera. I have the camera. And as an aside, I was very happy tonight when I opened this up and took the camera out, because for a Mauser broom handle pistol that he brought home, which I also have, I didn't bring here, but I knew I had the capture papers for it somewhere that he had to fill out in order to bring it home, and I've been looking for them for about 2 or 3 years. I've been through every box in the whole house, looked through books, couldn't find it anywhere, and it was in the back of that camera case when I took that camera. I found it, so I was extremely happy about that. Okay, this is DeAnthony. This is the other platoon leader. I contacted one of his sons up in Baltimore and sent him the presentation, and he thanked me for that. But we didn't have a whole lot of communication on that. But I did send him the presentation. This is Captain Hancock. This is here, I think. This is Hancock here. That's Dad's CO, and that's Dad there on the right. Dad, he was a little guy. He was probably about 5'6". So. Says, I was surprised to be given the Bronze Star Medal this PM for our work over the line. Several of my boys were to get them, but also we just couldn't make it, so I have to wait until next year. Says, this is the citation for heroic action in Germany on March 9-10. The platoon leader displaying integrity and courage ably served construction on the first floating Treadway Bridge over the Rhine River, also subjected to aerial attacks, continuous heavy observed enemy artillery fire, which made many direct hits on the bridge equipment. He inspired his men by his personal example and undaunted courage to diligently perform the hazardous task. Here's one for one of his men, Virgil Bowley. It says, on March 9th, during construction of the first bridge across the Rhine, technician Bowley, a crane operator, received a direct hit on his crane from artillery fire. With disregard for his personal safety, he repaired his crane under intense and constant enemy fire and continued in the construction of the bridge. Another one of his men, Corporal Howard Scott, a powerboat operator, displayed undaunted courage and determination in operating his boat under continuous observed enemy artillery fire while towing bridge sections from an assembly area. As it was being assembled, despite frequent hits on his craft, he continued in his hazardous task, and when a direct hit on his craft necessitated abandonment of his boat. This is moving on from Ramadan. The letter says, Army boys really stay on the go and no fooling. General Patton really does keep us moving, but it's okay with me because the sooner it's over, the better off we'll be. And this is playing poker in the tent as they prepare to cross the Inn River. This is the Danube River, where they cross the bridge they built over the Danube River. And there's once again the destroyed standing infrastructure that the Germans took down before they retreated. Yes, the Danube is a very big river, but not quite as blue as some would think. None can compare the Rhine, though, for its beauty. It's truly a beautiful river. The trouble is that there's always one more river to cross. It's good to know that the Italian front has surrendered because I don't want to have to go through the Bavarian mountains. We had snow this morning, but it has stopped now. This is another picture of the Danube. This is, I'm quite sure you are wondering what will become of us now that it's over here. So that's May 8th, that's the VE Day when victory was declared in Europe. We don't know, and we probably won't know for a few weeks. I hope that it isn't China or the Pacific. I'd rather stay with the Army of Occupation, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping we will be sent home. So war was still ongoing in the Pacific, even though Europe had surrendered. This is the Mooseburg crossing over the ISPR. This is the last one they did. I think this is the only one that they constructed that wasn't under enemy fire. And this is a German officer returning home. And there's a German officer here, if you look at the picture with a magnifying glass, you can see it, and the little kids are running out to him, and on the back they have the return of Superman. Says, I've been taking it easy and trying to get back to feeling good again, but the uncertainty of not knowing if I will stay here or go home or maybe go to the Pacific is rather nerve-wracking and no fooling. We don't know for sure what they will do, as some of them are going direct without even going home. Gee, I hope we're lucky enough to get home, and boy, oh boy, do I want to get back to civilian life. I've been in just over 5 years now. This is a German officer. I do know something about this, that he said they came across this guy and they gave him a ride home. They said, you know, the German officer agreed the war was over. He was happy about it. The Americans were happy about it, so they gave him a ride home. I hate to think, my grandmother wanted a flag, and here's the Nazi banner here on the table that he sent as a result of this. I hate to think of all the flags I passed up. I really didn't think that I'd ever want them, but now I really would like to have a collection. The box containing the flag contains it, some perfume, and a book on the story of Germany. It was a new flag right off the shelf with the tag still on it. I too hope I will get to keep my helmet. I really want more than that anything, but apparently he didn't. I don't ever remember seeing this helmet. There have been a few books written about this. One's called Those Damned Engineers by Janice Hope Giles, wife of Sergeant Henry Giles. It says, these men with whom he slept and ate and joked and with whom he worked were his brothers or his family or his home and his world. They knew each other better than they would ever again know another human being, even their wives. These are pictures taken, I'll go through these fairly quick. These are pictures taken while they were there with the Army of Occupation. It took me a little while to figure this out because they look so relaxed and at ease, but it's because the war was over in the spring and they didn't come home until the fall. So they were rebuilding infrastructure, they were rebuilding permanent bridges during that time period. And so these are just pictures of people in his unit. This is the best damn mechanic in the Army. This is Dad and DeAnthony and Hancock, his CO. And this gentleman here, this fellow here in the helmet, I can't quite read his name, but I somehow got in contact with his daughter. She was interested in knowing what her father did, and maybe she contacted me. I'm not sure how we hooked up. She lives in Tennessee, if I remember correctly. But we communicated back and forth quite a bit, and I sent her copies of everything I had, and she was very, very thankful for that. So that was a good experience. She said, one like me, she said she didn't really know much about what her father did. These are more pictures of just the men during the period of occupation. This is Dad and DeAnthony, the 2 platoon leaders. This is his Jeep driver, Raymond Ray. Says, July 18th, yesterday, the Colonel told me we're supposed to sail for home in October, so ain't that swell, only wish it was tomorrow. But knowing when it is quite a relief, and don't forget that, I really am happy. The only trouble is they might change their mind. That was July, then in August, I'm so glad the war with Japan is over. Hiroshima was August 6th. It will probably hasten our trip home, at least I hope so. We're supposed to sail in October, but we're hoping maybe it will speed up a bit now. I hope that we'll have many years of peace. More pictures of the people in his unit. They commandeered a boat and apparently did some water skiing in the summer on the boat. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. This is Jake the dog. He looks like he's pretty talented. I'm not sure where they picked up Jake along the way. Looks like he's a German Shepherd though. No, I don't want to show that side. After you receive this letter, don't write to me until you hear from me. It is leaving very soon from France and then for home. It will probably take a month and I won't be writing much, so trying to get everything fixed up and turned in. It says, my darling, here I'm going to drop you a few lines to let you know that things are still okay. It won't be too long now. I'll probably write you one more letter from Germany and maybe a few from France. although I hope not too many because I want to be on my way home. We had a little crap game last night, and I figured maybe you had better buy a washboard and tub instead of a washing machine. I lost about a half a washing machine. We had a very nice time though, and a fella can't expect to win every time. We haven't been getting any mail. Guess they're holding it down there till we get there. I hope I have some nice news for you, and hope we are not held up here for too long. This is, we thought we'd be out of here by the 23rd or 4th today, but instead we have to wait until the 28th. We're quite anxious to get home. So you can see he wanted to get home, and that's why the duffel bag full of guns went overboard. Okay, here's some statistics. Total number of linear feet of floating bridge, almost a mile. Total number of linear feet of fixed Treadway Bridge, and approximate number of miles traveled, almost 4,000 miles from D-Day to VE Day. River crossings, there's all the rivers that they crossed. The general opinion throughout the 1,111th booth was that the 998th was the best unit of its kind in the First Army, from the book First Across the Line by Colonel David E. Irwin. It says, in July 3rd, it says, we built the first bridge in France, we built the first bridge in Germany, and the first across the Rhine and the Danube, and the last one in Germany. All but one were constructed under enemy fire. The Saar was the toughest of all, and Famboise was next, with the Rhine being third. So that Battle of Remagen was the third worst one for him personally, in his opinion. It says, one first doesn't realize how tired they are till they get a chance to rest. I was really in bad shape and no fooling. It's all over now, though. So guess the best thing to do is just forget it. My emphasis. And I think that's what a lot of those guys just tried to do, was just forget it, which is why they didn't talk about it. Maybe I can get home tonight before too long, so hope so anyway. Sometimes things were actually funny when it was all over, though. Like the night we were bombed and I jumped in my foxhole with nothing on but my shorts and steel hat. When it was all over, I found that I had jumped through a rose bush, so I spent the next day picking at the thorns. Said I didn't even notice it, though, when I went in, but golly, I was scared. So he was in contact with his CO right before he died, when he was in the hospital down here in NASA Wallops. He reached out and made contact with Hancock down in Texas. And so he, as far as I know, he never went to any reunions. Those guys had some reunions. And this is one they had. Dad died in 1989, and I maintained contact with a couple of these guys for a little bit. And they had a reunion in 1990 somewhere out in the middle part of the country, or Colorado. It wasn't on the East Coast anyway. I'm not sure. I don't remember where it was. And they invited me to come out, but I had a new job at Wallops and a young daughter, and it just seemed like too much at the time. It was a big regret that I wish I had gone. So this guy here is Hancock. This is Hancock. And this guy over here is the father of the woman in Tennessee that I communicated with. The greatest generation. A couple of books. This is the same picture with all the brass standing in front of the sign. You saw some pictures with Dad's guys. And this is Hancock. He was the only one officer high enough up to merit a picture with that crowd. But that's Dad's CO Hancock. So that's it. So, and I have a list of things. Come up, please, and look at the stuff on the table. I'll be happy to tell you about any of it. This is a dimmer, bazooka rifle.
Has it been diffused?
Yes, it has. This is. And I didn't know what these were. These were just in the junk tool drawer, but a friend of mine out at White Sands, John Winstead, actually gave me a complete set, which I didn't bring it because it wasn't Dad's, but it was a lineman's pliers. It had a knife and these pliers in a leather sheath that you carried on your side. And the pliers have a point on this end, and that was for making holes in explosives, and we would put the detonator in for charges. So that's what that's for. And I didn't know that. Winstead told me. So, and he knows. He's a history buff. Dad's medals are here. These are some daggers. Three of these I purchased, and 3 of them he sent home. And very interesting. The Germans had a dagger for everybody. They were very much into the us and them, and if you were one of the us, you got a dagger for whatever your subcategory of the us was. And there's a bunch of little German insignias, some Hitler stamps and coins and different things of interest. And Mom was a scrapbooker. There's a scrapbook here that's coming apart because the paper's so old, but it covers from where they were in the States and his time in Europe. And this is the book with most of the pictures that I took out here that you saw in the slides. So come up and have a look if you like.
What type of woman was your grandmother? Was she a strong lady? Was she?
She was shorter than Dad. She was about 4'10" maybe.
Well, I say this because as the mother of a son that's in the Army, if I had gotten those letters, I would have been devastated. I couldn't have read them.
Well, the bad ones were written after. Like I said, the ones that were bad were written after the war. After he was there with the Army occupation, he was telling her all the stuff that he couldn't tell her when it was actually happening.
Yeah.
So,
I just literally could not.
because the vast majority of those letters are pretty simple. Hey, Mom, everything's okay. Don't worry.
And that being said, simple. That's another thing that struck me when I was reading through this. Is his language, the way, no fooling. It was like because it was the way they talked in that time. No golly gee, it wasn't any. It's like you would have today. It's like no fooling.
Language has changed.
Yes, it has. But I mean, just the way you wrote
Especially this last year.
was the way they spoke.
Dad wrote a lot. He wrote some to Pete. You gave me some, right? That were the Pete Copes. Mary Will gave me some letters, and that somehow ended up.
I just thought that there was wording and no what she would say. That's just cool. Thank you so much for sharing all this.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. It was wonderful. I know we all did.
I worked on it for a year or two, obviously not constantly, but I worked on it for a while, figuring out, and I was really happy to have the opportunity to do it because, like I said, I did not know this story myself, and so the letters really pulled it all. They were in a footstool in the basement, is where I found it.
And we run into so much of that now that we just try and get people to hold on to, and it's just getting thrown away.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. That's how things become rare. Is that stuff just gets thrown away. So.
Scariest one was when they were building it under fire.
All of them were under fire except one.
But that not the last one, but the one second to the last one. I don't see how they did it. I mean, if you're getting shot at and you just got to go put another pontoon, I think I'd have gone the other direction.
As bad as it was for the guys in Europe, the guys in the Pacific had it way worse. Yeah, it was way worse for the guys. The guys in the Pacific, like Colvin often said, he didn't send anything home. He didn't have anything to pick up. He said there wasn't anything to pick up, and if you picked up anything, it was probably booby trapped and going to kill you. So they had it really tough. Those guys in the Pacific. Colvin was at Kwajalein. He was with when they took Kwajalein. He was with that. Yeah.
Goodness.
He worked in Bill Hickman's selling clothes later. Lived in Locustville. He died not that long ago. He was. I don't know if he was 100, but I think he was in his 90s. I wouldn't mind talking.
We only got 2 seats.
He didn't want to talk about it. It's like I No, it's the plane comes in and strafes the bridge, and there's this guy running like hell, and his bullets are catching up with him, and he jumps over the and he shows his Everybody was there. Everybody was our College dad didn't see you. He was
But Simon was, I think he was the last disciple of Jesus. And there's an episode, I watched it, and then afterwards, I wondered more about Simon. I guess Simon, yeah. I think he's the one that went on, because he was real friendly and people loved him. I think he went on to tell
Yeah, how they all did.
well, they all did.
Simon was,
Jesus told him that
yeah,
so I think Jesus ought to know.
he should. I like the ones that is, I think I've talked about it before, but it's a religious thing. It's put on by the I watched the story.
I saw the movie and then I thought, maybe I would watch something else.
No, I like the Christmas Wallops.
It's just, I know, it's just, well, that's Dick's favorite, but it's just been so long since I remembered all the disciples, but I couldn't remember which one he was. Simon was the first.
Yeah, Simon.
God, I've been sitting too long now, I can't walk. No.
Well, that's because your shirt was hooked up on that chair. That will keep you from going anywhere.
Well, actually, that was quite I had one morning where I didn't feel good.
That was very much fun. I was telling Tripp that my